we really do put everything into everything we do. We put 100% in, to the point where I can vividly remember, I won't name him, but there was one guy who every year he would cry every single time.
Welcome back to the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a full crew, Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, and from the East Coast, Coleman Stewart. What's up, Coleman?
Hello, how are you guys?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good. We're all right, but we're in California, so we're not dealing with 30s and rainy weather or even ice like it seems like the rest of the country. So, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, not something to be sorry about. You're just in a better place.
Well, I don't know. I'd say you're in a much better place athletically than we are, so we'll just put that out there. What's going on, man? What are you up to?
Nothing much. Just training. Going to my last semester of school. Got a few more classes, and then other than that, not really too much going on in my life.
So, how much do you have left of school then?
Last semester. I got 7 more credits.
Okay. Yeah. Is that like senior year of high school too, where you're just cruising in, or do you have some doozy classes that you're dealing with that actually do take a lot of brain space?
It's pretty much just senior year of high school. I got one class for my coaching minor, one class for my major, and then I'm taking golf. So that's pretty cool. In the second half of the semester, maybe I'll actually learn how to hit a golf ball consistently. And then, I'm coaching on the side for an internship. So not too stressful this semester.
You're taking golf? You can study golf and get a credit for it?
Yeah, so for my coaching minor a few summers ago, I took a coaching golf class. And then you can take a credit for just learning how to play golf, and that counts as our phys ed class.
Can swimmers play golf, gentlemen? I don't think we have the hand-eye coordination. I can't hit the ball. I literally can't hit it.
I'm not kidding. So my last semester living in Auburn, I was on a 9-hole golf course, and every night I would grab a driver and a wedge and a putter, and I would just and a beer, and then I would go to the tee box. And I would just play the hole a couple times, grab a few balls, play a couple balls at a time. Nobody cared. Truthfully, I feel like I used to like playing golf because I felt like it helped my connectivity, especially with my hips to my hands. And I feel like that's a really important aspect of stroke mechanics, particularly in freestyle. And so I liked it for that aspect. And I've heard some triathletes that are trying to learn how to swim that are not like great swimmers who also find that connection point through the game of golf. So the downside of it is when you make impact, then I would get some niggles in my shoulders or somewhere problematic that I'd have to go see the chiropractor or get a massage. And it's just like, nah. I said massage like I'm a British, so that's what you get for having that.
I'm proud of you.
I had an Australian coach who said massage, so that's the way I always think about it. No, but anyway. Wait, so Coleman, what's your handicap and what are you expecting? Because you got to set some goals for when you go through this golf class.
I don't have a handicap. I've never I don't play consistently enough to get one. And right now I'm just trying to break 100. I don't, like I said, I don't play enough. I'm making excuses now. Every golfer has to, but yeah, I just need to play more and, hopefully break 100 at some point. My dad still beats me. So that's the goal, is to beat him on the golf course, even though today's his birthday. He's 59 years old and he still beats his 22-year-old, athletic son. So that's the goal.
Yeah. That just gets to you so much too. And there's some activities that you just can't win. Dad's going to win.
Yeah.
You got to challenge him to speed golf. So one of the former guys I worked with, Alan Phillips, shout out. It's a race where you have a small bag, you have 2 or 3 clubs, and it's who can finish all the holes, and you run and hit and run and hit and get the ball and go from hole to hole. I think you can take him on that one.
That one I might be able to beat him at. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh man. Well, hey, we want to there's so many things to talk about with you. I think actually there's some foundational things I think I'd love to learn about you too, like the background that you came from, learning that you are from the Eastern Seaboard in Baltimore, and grew up kind of in the close home of guys like Phelps and Katie Hoff, and there's such a rich tradition there. Obviously in deep into DC Trident territory. So I'm sure, I'm sure it was a raucous thing. I'm sure the fan base was really disappointed that you signed with Cali.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, to give us a sense of what do you remember most about, growing up swimming, your introduction to the sport, and kind of your high school environment?
Yeah, so I started swimming. I'm from York, Pennsylvania. Started swimming for the York Y. My dad was my coach for a little bit. He was one of the coaches. He was a volunteer, coached all four of us, 3 older siblings. So it was pretty competitive growing up. We were all swimmers. We all wanted to beat each other. Me being the youngest, I really had something to prove to try to beat him. And then. Yeah, at one point, I decided that I no longer wanted my dad to be my coach, because I was in that phase of I don't need my, it was just immature of me, absolutely, and that created a lot of tension, especially on the car rides home. But eventually I got over it. I wanted to quit when I was like 12 or 13. Thought I was going to be a soccer star, even though I was horrible at it. But my dad wouldn't let me quit. Obviously now I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, that was kind of, growing up in swimming. My grandparents had a pool.
Did he make you pay for it? Was that part of the deal, that you didn't have to pay for swimming, and then suddenly your dad had to start paying for swimming? Is that why he was pissed?
No, no.
Okay.
But yeah, my grandparents had a pool, and the week before my first swim, like official swim practice, I was still wearing a floaty in the pool in the deep end. So I think that's kind of funny. I was still like not confident with my swimming a week before my first swim practice, but yeah. And then you mentioned Baltimore. When I was 16, I made the switch to North Baltimore and spent a year training in the group right below Phelps and Bowman, and that was really, really cool, really eye opening, and yeah, that was, like you said, just a really cool experience to be able to be around all those guys with in a place with all that history.
Why did you make that change?
There was a little bit of my family was kind of forced out of the York Y. Club teams always have drama. We were unfortunately not really able to stay there anymore. I had kind of been wanting to switch to North Baltimore for a few years prior, but with my family, we weren't able to make it work. But when we weren't given a choice, we were obviously able to make it work, and it was really, really good. I really credit Eric Posgay was my coach. He's at Wisconsin now. I really credit him to getting me even close to NC State. I don't think I would be at a Power 5 Division I school if it wasn't for Eric. So really, really thankful that it kind of all worked out in the end.
We're gonna get into underwaters a little bit later, but did you do any of that in high school, or did that come later?
I remember I never really remember like what made the switch. I think it was 100 fly. I hated butterfly growing up, and 100 short course butterfly. I think I remember looking at the pool and just being like, if I can kick to 15, why don't I just do it? It's less swimming butterfly. So I think that's kind of like, and I think I dropped time in the 100 fly, and then I was like, oh, okay, that might work.
Yeah, I'd love to learn a little bit more about, like you said, your dad was your coach for a little while. Obviously, now you've had time to reflect on all that and all that relationship as a parent and a coach. I get a lot of questions from parents that are pretty involved, maybe not coaching, but probably thinking they're the coach or better than the coach. Looking back on it now, do you think that was helpful for you?
I think it was helpful in the long run. I think if you're able to be coached by a parent, you can kind of be coached by anyone, because you can't really get away from them once you step off the pool deck. But yeah, I mean, I think it helps. Like I said, now, back then it didn't help me. I wasn't mature enough to get that. But if you're able to kind of, take a step back as a swimmer and really understand that what they are trying to do what's best for you. But typically, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, but yeah, again.
Definitely. And your dad, I mean, he swam in college. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, he watched some fishes and he's like, oh yeah, I can do this better. I wrestled and watched some fish. I'm good to coach Coleman. So he had a background, obviously. So it's interesting to hear that perspective. Thank you.
But I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I'm deliberately making an effort not to even be on deck. Like I'm just trying to let them, but I am watching their coaching and see what the environment they're in and making sure they focus on the right things I think they should be at that age. So I am coaching in background, but it's very difficult to do. So I hear you, Coleman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about this. Did you, because Luke's kids have taken to the water extremely well for young people. It's so clear that either have something really natural or Luke is, some sort of, amazing instructor, or like there's something about seeing people in the water and having that mental program put into your brain so that when you actually go to do it, that you've seen it done in a pretty technically good way for so many years that you can do it. I mean, I'm just curious about had you seen your dad swim? And do you think that had any, do you remember, did you take to the water really, really well?
So both my parents, before they had kids, they were both triathletes for a while. My mom was actually professional and was making money from it. But my dad stopped once we had kids. My mom kept going. So I grew up watching her swim, and doing open water and, biking, running, obviously. So I never watched my dad swim, but I did watch my mom, and I don't really think I took to the water immediately. Like I said, with the grandparents' pool, I was wearing a bubble right before I started swimming. And the first couple of years of swim practice, my mom had to bribe me to stay in the water for the whole practice. I think it was, if I stayed in the water for the whole practice for 3 times in a week, I would get a towel on Friday. And I did not get very many towels. So
I mean, they let you shiver on deck and it froze you? No. You don't dry off.
You got to air dry.
And just get paper towels and just dab dry myself.
2 paper towels, that's all you got. You just did 200. No, but coming up on the show, I think our next guest, Gustavo Borges and his son, Luis Gus Borges. And we're going to be talking about this whole father-son and the pressures that you have with parents who swam, and how you mitigate that. So I think there's a really nice segue to that as well. But and then with I know you said 3 siblings swam, your sister swam Princeton, brother Dartmouth. I don't know where your 3rd sibling swam at. But that's quite, Division I swimming. Your dad was Bucknell. Did you feel that pressure? And was it like, yeah, that's motivation. I want to kick their butt, and that's why you are who you are now?
Absolutely. I think. Yeah. I mean, my brother was really good. I think he had a YMCA national age group record.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was younger. I think it was in 100 IM.
Wow.
So he was really, really good. I'm only a year younger than him, so I was always kind of in his shadow in age group swimming. And then he and my other sister, stopped swimming around middle school, and she started running cross country and track in high school. But my other 2, like I said, my brother and other sister, started focusing a little bit more on kind of like the studying of like, and swimming or studying in school, stuff like that. They wanted to go to Ivy Leagues. And so I kind of saw that as my opportunity to really go into athletics and swimming, try to get the better of them in that. My parents were always very adamant about, you don't need to be great at everything. Just like try to pick one thing and be really, really good at it. So that's kind of what we focused on.
I was going to ask you, so I missed the Atlanta games, and my brother made the Sydney games, and he went. And I always wondered what was the difference. Why? How come you got so far ahead in the sport? You think what makes you such a damn good swimmer? Like, what do you think? I mean, your siblings are Division I. They're the top swimmers in the world, but you now are a professional swimmer. What do you think was that difference? Was it that you just really took that advice and you focused really well on couple of strong things? You had good habits? I don't know.
I think it was a little bit of me being the youngest and I wanted to beat them. Always being in their shadow. Like we all like went to the same high school. I was always like, oh, another Stewart kid, and they were, like I said, super smart. So I wanted to get the better of them in something. So I think it was just kind of that in the back of my head, really just trying to be better than them.
Yeah.
And I do think that I have been extremely blessed with good swimming genes. I think my parents were pretty nice with getting me that.
Definitely. Obviously, there's so many factors involved with success, but obviously being internally motivated is a huge one. And going to NC State, you certainly had a lot of other competition and people to race there. So you mentioned, like you said, North Baltimore setting you up to be recruited by a Power 5. How did you go about being recruited and choosing NC State?
So I had all 5 trips lined up. I think it was 2 Big Ten schools, 2 ACC schools, and a Pac-12 school. I really thought I wanted to go to a Big Ten school because growing up in Pennsylvania, you know, I had Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. Like I just really liked the Big Ten, but I took my trips there and I didn't really fit in, didn't really vibe with the team as much to either of those schools. And then NC State was my 3rd trip. And I remember Gary Taylor picked me up in his Dodge Caliber or something like that. And he had he just so happened to have the ACC trophy in the trunk of his car. And he was like, oh yeah, look at this. We just picked it up from the photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure that wasn't planned at all. But he picked me up from the airport and took me to Chick-fil-A, and he was just kind of explaining everything, like the team mentality. And I really that's kind of when I decided like I really like this place. And then once I met the team, Braden, it was just really a family atmosphere that I felt was going to set me up for success. And you know, I think it did a pretty good job with that.
Yeah, I had a similar story at Auburn with being recruited. Being at that time, you know, there's I think at least every senior class, once every 4 years, so there's like a period of 10 years or so, or maybe 8 years before I started there, that there was like that many classes of people that had won a national championship. So you know, it really stands out when you can say like, yeah, we come here to win rings. You know, I think that speaks a lot to young swimmers who are motivated to go and be part of an environment where they can achieve beyond just themselves. Right. And that's honestly something that, you know, and honestly Auburn now is an extension of NC State with Gary, you know, coaching there. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious about what is it that's in the culture that's been created. You can see it from afar that there's this brotherhood and this camaraderie that, man, it's fun to watch because I feel like I lived in that culture, you know, was a part of it, and you know, a decade before, and so it's fun to see. Tell me, like, what's going on with that? Where does it come from? How does that dynamic get formed?
Well, so Braden swam at NC State. He graduated late 90s, early 2000s. And so he personally has so much invested into NC State. So when he came back to coach, we were at the bottom of the ACC, only beating like Miami because they only have divers, and Boston College. So he had to make a huge cultural switch. I think his first year at ACCs, he didn't even take a full roster, didn't take 18 swimmers because he just needed to cut half the team because they weren't the right fit. And so when the culture switch was initially started, it was just completely Braden based. Like he decided that he needed to do this. But since then, it is absolutely swimmer driven. Braden just kind of he doesn't really need to be on top of us anymore. The captains, and not even just the captains, the entire team really, once they step on campus, they realize like there's not really any messing around. I'm here to swim fast. I'm here to create memories that are gonna stick with them for the rest of their lives. And everybody just really, really buys in. I think that's the biggest thing that our swimmers do well is when they come in, they buy into the process, full trust into the coaches. I think that's huge. And Braden is really, really good at creating that trust from the swimmers to the coaches.
I was gonna say, give me an example. Give me an example of is it a set that you can remember that the swimmer stepped up? Was it a meet? Was it at anything? Give me an example that you can think of that showed that.
Put me on the spot here. All right.
There must be a set that the captain said no guys, or a dry land bit. I mean,
Let's see. Every year, we used to do this thing called a squat pyramid, where you would hold a squat for 5 seconds, stand for 5 seconds, hold a squat for 10 seconds, rest for 5 seconds, all the way up to I think we got to a minute, and it just blasts your legs. Like it is just horrible. And I remember my freshman year, there were some senior, they did it every year. We did it for recruits because we wanted to show the recruits how tough we were. And kind of didn't work because some of the men's team was crying. But I think that just kind of proves even though it's kind of just dry land and it's kind of just for show, we really do put everything into everything we do. We put 100% in, to the point where I can vividly remember, I won't name him, but there was one guy who every year he would cry every single time.
Don't worry, we all had that one guy who cried. Oh, Joe, what's the hardest set you remember doing during your time at NC State? I mean, I know you're still there training, but what's during the college years? What do you remember?
All right, back in my college days, let's see. There were a few sets that Braden wrote that were just impossible. I remember my freshman year, the women were dueling Duke on a Saturday, and the men's team was back training. We had one of our assistant coaches who wasn't comfortable with changing the set, and Braden just wrote an impossible set. It was backstroke tower stuff, and that was probably the most impossible one. The hardest one, probably, we do a set every Christmas training, 4100s. All of them are threshold or hard effort. So short course yards, he wants the guys holding no matter what group you're in. A lot of the guys, he wants the top end guys want to hold under 50 for swim, and then kicking is all out with a board, trying to hold just as fast as you can. That set is just really, really mentally draining.
On 140 or something? What pace thing?
I think swim was on 130, kick was on 2 minutes.
When did you do that best? I was asked what was your most accomplished set? I did that, I know I'm ready. What was that set?
We do another set we do during Christmas training, pyramid set. It's a total of 20 50s. We do one fast, one easy, 100 pull, one fast, one easy, all the way up to 4. And then we switch to long course or short course. We start long course, switch to short course. That one, I remember doing backstroke. And I remember my freshman year, I was beating our top 50 backstroker at the time. And that's when I was like, you know, I can actually do something on this team. So that's probably that one for me.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I talked with Braden years ago, and hearing his ways to, like you said, build the team, have the swimmers motivate each other was really, I think, eye-opening at the time. And I know a lot of other coaches have implemented some of his strategies about having like themed workouts or hashtag workout type of things, and having athletes like call each other out on times that they want each other to go and things like that. Is that something that was different for you when you got to school, and did you find that motivating?
Absolutely. Yeah, when I got there, there was a backstroker, Jason Stewart, and he was the top 200 backstroker, top 100 backstroker on the team. And he was a hard ass, man. He was so tough on me. I mean, which I'm thankful for. I probably wasn't always grateful for it at the time, but yeah, he would call me out if I was going fast or going too slow. He would, you know, give me some love if I was going fast. He was always super supportive no matter what. Yeah, he was just a really good supportive leader. Even like kind of when we switched over and I kind of was getting faster than he was always still so supportive, so positive, just happy for me and happy for the team. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's an important step too when you cross that threshold of consistently beating somebody or at least competing with them. I don't know. I'll just share the story. One of those sets for me, Luke, was actually my freshman year when one of the guys, BJ Jones, who was like a helpful senior on the team, who ended up being a NCAA finalist, but was a local guy from Georgia too, and he had recruited me to swim at Auburn. And I remember that was the first time I was a 200 freestyler in high school, and I ended up being a sprinter. But I remember holding 23s on 2450s on a minute. And that was the first time I used to do 50s like that on pace all the time in high school, training for 200 free. But in college, the first time that I was right there with BJ holding 2030s and like duking it out 1-to-1, you know, I'd catch him on some, not many, but I'd like edge him out on some of them. And that was set for me, even though it was early in my career. It was like, I hear you. There's always a moment where you go, and maybe for some people it happens each year that it's sort of, okay, now I'm ready, now I'm fit, now I know. But that's just the one that stands out for me.
What about the set that was most interesting? So Brian, I remember seeing a set that you guys did, Fred and Cesar and George and stuff. You guys used to base your rest on number of breaths. So you come to the wall and you're allowed 2 breaths, not time, breaths. And then Daniel Carr talks about they're already working the underwaters and making sure they're getting their 12 kicks underwater and working those kind of sets with Murph and these people. I mean, Coleman, what's a set where you really learned and you liked this set? They really worked on something different and it really improved. Was it, you know, like Auburn was breath holding and controlling and recovering and bring it down, you know, Cal guys, the underwaters. What about you? What was something that you're like, oh, that was really improved me?
I think it's not a specific set, but it's a type of set. Just 100 speed workouts. Whenever I'm sure a lot of colleges are like this, but whenever we come in to a workout, Braden, like we know exactly what we're working on, whether it's like 200 speed, 100 speed, bullshit aerobic, or something like that. But the 100 speed workouts, even from freshman year, that's when I really learned that I needed to have like a specific number of underwater kicks, a specific stroke count, you know, even on backstroke. Like that was kind of eye-opening to me. And kind of piggybacking off that is every Thursday afternoon, we would have a group of guys would go and we would have an underwater workout that was focused on, like freshman year was focused on getting really fast underwaters. And then it kind of transformed into my senior year. It was holding really fast underwaters throughout a 200. So like making sure that the first off the start, the underwaters are going to be just as fast as on that 8th turn.
All right.
7th turn.
I don't know how you do that because I swam in the 90s. And in the 90s, you had Dennis Pankotov doing this on his underwaters. You had Mel Stewart going 35 meters underwater for his 100 fly. It was like, those are oddities. Like, oh, that's a fad. So I don't know how to do underwater to this day. How do you do what you just said? Like, tell me what, I mean, and your underwater is quite not different. It's, you definitely have a style of your underwater. I was telling the guys earlier, you undulate from your fingertips to toes.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody does that. Some people believe in, stiff upper body and this stuff from here, what have you. You run, for those who are listening, you run the 5th stroke camp where you literally focus on teaching what is in swimming now called the 5th stroke. How do you make me a better underwater kicker? What is the 1 or 2 things that you can, like, you need to focus on? Like, how do you get to be a good underwater kicker? I know it sounds a silly, dumb question, but there must be something, right? Is it like,
Luke needs a lot of help.
Like, lose 30 years. No, go ahead.
The first thing that I like when I run the camps, sorry, hey,
No, it's okay.
You started to growl.
The show's, it's our first dog on the show. It's real good.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. All right.
No, not all good. Bob Platt had these massive black dogs on. It's huge. Remember those guys? It was awesome. Anyway.
All right. You got your screen time.
There you go.
Let's talk doggy paddle.
All right. All right. So yeah, the first thing that, when I'm running these camps is starting the kick with a chest. I think a lot of people, like, it's called a dolphin kick, obviously, but it's really like you said, it's a full body undulation. It kind of starts in the chest, hips follow, and then your feet move the most. I liken it to whipping, like just cracking a whip, where this is the beginning of the whip and then your feet are the end. So just like that. And like you said, I use my upper body as well. It's definitely a personal preference. Not everybody likes that. Not everybody teaches that. But for me, I think it takes a little stress off the legs, and I'm able to use my core and my back muscles a little bit more rather than just focusing on hips, legs, calves. I think it kind of helps me keep that underwater strength throughout the, a 200 back when I swam the 200. So those are probably the 2 biggest things.
Got it. Yeah, like you said, there's differing opinion. I mean, the current research really does suggest more of like a sternum down motion, but obviously yourself, Caleb, a lot of other great underwater swimmers are having much more undulation. So was your style something that, you were taught technically, you think, or this is just kind of what you figured out when you were younger?
I think it's definitely what I figured out when I was younger. My strength coach tells me all the time, just my hips are ultra flexible. And I think that's kind of what gives me a little bit of an edge when it comes to undulating in the chest, where I'm not as tight in the hips. So I think it's I was, again, blessed with the genetics of being a swimmer, specifically an underwater swimmer.
But that's rare, right, John, for a swimmer to have not tight hips? I mean, that's extremely rare not to have an imbalance of the strength of the legs and the hips, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely in swimmers, usually, I mean, most of the kicking is quad dominant. So quads get pretty tight, the long hip flexors, and create some tightness in the hips. So how did the strength coach, what type of things do you do where he's like, oh, that's how you're flexible in the hips? Is it like with a backward bend or with squat depth and stuff?
The lambada. No.
It was squats.
Yeah.
My freshman year, he was there all 4 years. He's actually head strength coach for the Seattle Kraken, the new NHL team. He just got that job. So, but when I first came in, man, he was making fun of me just because I was so skinny. I was so weak and I couldn't do a squat to save my life. I was like alternating between front squat, back squat, and just nothing was working for me. But he and the strength coach we have now both worked so hard to get me like just stronger and kind of almost tighten up my hips a little bit where I can get the strength rather than just the flexibility.
Do you ever think about, we've talked to a few guests about this, and I remember Michael Klim sort of pioneered a changing muscle groups for the last 10 meters or so of 100 freestyle by going dolphin kick and a straight arm freestyle. And now you have guys like Nathan and Zach Apple who are doing a straight arm freestyle without the dolphin kick. Change muscle groups is you know, the what they're after. And I'm curious, do you ever think about your technique underwater toward the end of a race and perhaps going to sort of a different muscle group at all? Have you ever thought about it?
Absolutely. Braden, not necessarily thinking about going to a different muscle group, but the technique definitely. Braden really drills into us just rate and range of our kicks. The rate, he always wants us to be between 0.45 to 0.55 per kick, and the range as big as, like, almost as big as possible within that range, or rate, sorry. And especially the last like 15 meters or the last wall of a short course 100 butterfly, 100 backstroke, he emphasizes the rate over the range. So if you need to make your kick smaller, just try to get your rate to stay the same. And that's definitely something I think about, or try to think about, at least on the last wall of a race.
And what are some strategies you guys use for, you know, getting in that rate or getting that rate, you know, locked in? Is it with tempo trainers? Is it with underwater video analysis, or, you know, post-race stuff? What tools and techniques have you used and found helpful?
A little bit of both of those. We use tempo trainers. We use underwater underwater cameras, stuff like that. A lot of it is just Braden kind of came up with a thing called kicking progression. Kind of ties in with that underwater work, the underwater like training session that we did. But we do it twice a week. We do some kicking with socks, drag socks that try to slow your rate and make your range smaller, but you gotta try to fight that. We do some stuff with maybe it's against the tower, like a power tower, or on a rack. Really just anything to kind of add resistance to make it harder to kick, but just try to keep that rate and range the same.
How do you find that your power kicking compares to the end result of your kicking? I mean, and I say that meaning that, you know, some people are really good pullers, some people are really good kickers. Ultimately, that may be indicative of who the fastest swimmer is, but not always. I remember we had some guys who were really good at power rack, but when it came to the actual swimming, it wasn't exactly the same order. So, like, are you good on the power rack with kicking, especially as it compares to your peers?
Yeah, I think my power output is a little bit higher. Not a huge amount higher, just because like I said, I'm kind of skinny. I think it's mainly the technique that puts me over the edge rather than the power output. But I would say my power is slightly above those around me.
How do you work on your oxygen? Do you cover your nose with your lips? Do you just let a little air out? What do you do?
Yep, I do. Yeah. Purse my lips. Yeah.
And do you take this couple big gulps before the third turn, I should say, of the 100? I mean, describe how you do your breathing before you go and nail down that third turn.
I think we do so much breath control where I don't even think about holding, like I don't have to think about holding my breath on the last wall. I think like my air isn't the problem when it comes to that last turn. It's a lot more of holding the rate and the range the same on all 10 kicks that I take to get to 15. Yeah, it's not an oxygen problem. It's just my legs are dying problem.
You see, John, that's what I was wondering. Maybe question to you, John. I was bringing up power and oxygen and see if there's correlation. Like, if there's so much CO2 in your system at that point, how does that affect the actual power output of the muscles? And what can you do, if anything, to help that at all, to maintain the same power or strength on that last turn versus the first couple?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with this training and acclimation and making sure that you are getting oxygen and rest. Obviously, we see from a lot of great swimmers, if you get oxygen throughout the race, even at the end, you can still, get to 15 meters. You can still get that breath in. And as we're seeing underwater progress more and more training's being put in. We're getting faster to 15 meters. Less time is required underwater. Obviously, different factors will accumulate throughout the race, ranging from hydrogen ions to lactate to, like you said, different oxygen or, hemodynamics and things like that in the blood. So I think just training acclimation and more importantly, with a lot of people, just staying relaxed as these factors start to rise and not letting the body tighten up or overstress. Yeah. So it just feeds into it even more.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to get back to on a much lighter note, is there a name for that face underwater? Is it underwater duck face or something like that?
I'm so jealous of whoever does this thing.
Is there a term for it, though?
I'm so jealous. My daughter can do it, but I'm like, where did you get that from?
Your daughter is doing duck face. You're like 10 or 9
I have the biggest nose in the world. How come I can't do it? I don't get it.
Not resting bitch face.
We need.
I've never heard anyone call it anything. It's like, oh, what do you do with your face?
Like, let's call it a name.
Like, is there a name?
The pucker. I don't know. Not to be confused with its sister. No.
Right? Has anyone heard it called something? All right. Anyways. Well, going with underwater, I'd like to transition maybe into above water because obviously you have great short course speed. We've seen it at NCs. You've won NCs. We saw it at the ISL. But obviously Olympic trials is hopefully going to happen and coming up. So as we're transitioning more and more towards long course, what are some things you're working on above the water?
The biggest thing that I'm working on, and I've been working on it for the last 3 years now, is just strength. A lot of the top guys, especially the backstrokers, when you look at Grievers, Murphy, Pebley, Justin Ress, they have, 20 pounds on me at least. So I think just not just trying to smack on muscle, but just try to be able to hold more water. And yeah, just try to get stronger, working on my backstroke pull a lot. Also transitioning a little bit more towards butterfly long course. I've been doing a lot of butterfly since I got back from the ISL. So yeah, I think that is kind of tying into the 100 freestyle as well. But yeah, just trying to focus on getting stronger.
How do you think about that balance? Because as somebody who, you'd say the strength coach was telling you that making fun of you because you were skinny coming in. And I don't know. I mean, we've talked to a range of people that from, we remember Duyo Dragana, who's, Olympic silver medalist, and one of actually didn't get under 19, but was close. NCAA champion himself, being, one of those guys who was really strength to weight ratio was the most important thing. And he focused a lot on speed and quickness and swimming on top of the water. So you're right. There's so many people now that are carrying a lot of strength, but you can get too strong. And I'm curious if you think about what's the right way for you to put on strength without losing that explosive power, without losing the flexibility in your hips and in your back that helps you be a propulsive underwater kicker. Is there anything that you're implementing in your training to do that? Or does that just become a problem once you start to get too yoked?
I don't think that will ever become a problem for me. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely a trade-off of if I do put on too much muscle, it will definitely start to hurt me. So I think right now I'm aiming to be at 175 for trials. I think that'll be a good, fighting weight. But
how tall are you?
What'd you say?
How tall are you?
6'1" or 6 foot. Sorry.
6 foot.
And how much do you weigh now?
like 172, 171.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a reasonable range
Yeah.
to put on. But yeah, I mean, we're talking 5-pound increments. It's significant.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when I first came in, I think I was only like 155, 160 to college.
Mhm.
So definitely been slowly but surely putting on a little bit of muscle.
Huh. How do you think that? I know some people that are. It helps their butterfly to train a lot of butterfly, and then for me, now granted, I was only good at the 50, but I trained very little butterfly, and mostly freestyle and backstroke, and then could just race butterfly. So, do you feel like? I mean, it sounds like it's somewhat relatively new for you, but have you always trained a fair amount of butterfly throughout your college career, or it sounds like the shift is happening more recently, but what do you think about adding that more to your program and how it may impact your racing and speed?
So yeah, it's a little bit new. Freshman, sophomore year, kind of throughout every college year, I would only train it once or twice, probably twice a week. And again, it was more focused on like endurance, not necessarily just power.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So, and then in 2018, I made the World University Games team for the 100 fly, 150 fly.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like, I would definitely was not expecting that. So that summer leading up to 2019, Braden and I, we were obviously focused on butterfly a lot. I really like training butterfly long course. I definitely prefer it over backstroke long course. So I like it. I think 2019 was the summer where it started to shift towards long course butterfly. But then for ISL, I'd switch back to backstroke. NCAAs, I was like, focused on a combination of both. I think it's really good for me to kind of like switch it up. It's never too monotonous for me where I like, if I don't want to do butterfly one day, I can just be like, I'll do backstroke. I am definitely not one of those guys who can just pump out 50s butterfly on low rest. I need my rest when I'm doing butterfly.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to talk about trials because right now trials has backstroke on day 2, and then butterfly is like day 6 or something. A few days later, you're contender in both of them, absolutely. So that's a number of swims each. That plays in your favor, in my opinion, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be nice. I kind of swim better when I have a few swims under my belt. So I think having that 100 backstroke, first, and then 100 free a few days after that, and then 100 fly.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out perfectly where I won't be overlapping any of the swims if I make finals in all 3. So I think it definitely lucked out and definitely plays into my favor.
So with trials coming up, what are some goal times you're shooting for?
I don't really. This is gonna be kind of weird because I know almost every successful person, they say list your goals and look at them every single.
They only
day.
say it after they've done the goal time, though. They all say, "Oh, by the way, I had this on a piece of paper." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever." So they never say it beforehand. Phelps never said, "I'm gonna go on one." No.
Yeah, Caroline Burkle drew her goals. It was like a picture of it, right? Wasn't she the one?
Yeah, but it was they told us after they did it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you what I'm going to do tomorrow in workouts. I promise.
Those aren't goals.
Well, I mean, if you haven't thought about it, at least how do you want to swim it? Like Marco Koch said, he wants to come back in the 32.5 in 200 breasts, and he wants to get into medal in Olympics. And we understand where that's coming from. Have you thought about times, breakdowns, how you want to swim these races, etc., etc.? I mean, we all know what it's going to take to make it, kind of, we think, but
yeah, I don't set goals really. Definitely, I don't really set time goals. I don't really. I used to. My junior year, I focused way too much. So like I won NCAA's my sophomore year, and then junior year I focused way too much solely on like I'm gonna win. There's no like I was just so focused on the end goal of winning, where I never really enjoyed the process. And then when I lost, I took it horribly. was not there mentally after the 100 backstroke for the rest of the meet. Right after the race, I just hopped out. Definitely was a bad look. I think I learned a lot from that. And so the next year, my senior year, I focused solely on setting my smaller goals each day in practice, rather than focusing on if I don't go a 21-1 here in this 50 backstroke, then I'm not going to win. It was I'm going to go a 21-1 here because I want to go a 21-1. And, that's just going to put me in the best place where I am right now. So I've kind of kept that because I really, really enjoyed swimming my senior year. It was probably the most fun I've had. I'm still having fun. I'm doing the same type of goal setting where I'm not focusing on the end goal. I don't really have time goals. I know how I want to swim it. I want to be out, a little bit behind everybody, hit the turn, and then beat them all up from 50 to 65 meters. Cause I think I'm, one of the fastest swimmers right now from 50 to 65. And then it's just figuring out how to get from 65 to 100. So that's kind of the goal of how I want to swim it. But yeah, I think the one goal that I definitely do know that I want to do is just make the national team. I haven't done that yet. So that's definitely one of the goals.
Coleman, what are you working on to be able to control that mindset you just talked about? Guys, I was thinking about this last night. Cody Miller has a great story when George spoke to him in the lunchroom at Rio and said, Cody, just focus on why you got into the sport, why you love the sport, why are you doing this in the first place? And Cody got on the blocks, and that's what he focused on. He focused on the love of the sport and why he was there. And he was able to block out the whole pressure of the Olympics and where he's at, focus on that, and we know what happened, right? But I was thinking about, how did Cody do that? I mean, we all hear great advice. We see quotes on Instagram all the time. That means a lot. But when you're actually there, how do you do that? That's really difficult to do. So, Coleman, are you doing stuff to help you just be there in the moment and be there for the true love of what you do? Are you working in that stuff with Braden or yourself?
Yeah, I think I am super lucky where I have just found a place and a coach that works perfectly for me. Like we touched on it earlier, where NC State is so focused on being the best, but we're also so focused on just having fun and enjoying it. Surrounding, last year, my senior year, I had a great group of training partners in Red Group, our middle distance group. And they just I never had to force that mentality of, I need to tell myself that I'm in this for fun. It was just so natural. I think with Corona, our pro team was training by itself at some local club team away from the college team. It was definitely a little bit harder. But I think Braden was a big help with that. He loves to have fun on deck. He's not one of those coaches that is going to throw something at you if you do something wrong. He'll laugh at you if you do something wrong, which I think is huge for me. So yeah, I never really had to force it. I think I'm really lucky with that aspect of just being able to be around people who also love the sport.
Aren't you a sprinter?
Yeah. Well, freshman.
What the hell are you doing in the mid-D group?
I trained in the middle distance group.
But aren't you a sprinter?
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. You mentioned having fun. Obviously, ISL is trying to, I think, have fun or bring more fun and obviously more eyes to the sport. Do you feel like the ISL made progress with season 2, and where do you see it moving on from there?
I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. It was a long 6 weeks though, man. It was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But it was so much fun being able to be surrounded by literally it was 360 or 320 of the best swimmers in the world all in one place. That was amazing. Definitely a huge learning experience for me. I think honestly, they just need to keep doing what they're doing. I think, a little more advertising maybe, but I think the production has been really, really good. Overall, it's been an enjoyable experience, and hope season 3 is able to go off without a hitch.
How did you get recruited? How did the champions recruit you?
Jason texted me the night NCAA's got canceled.
Smart man.
Yeah, he was wasting no time. He had texted Justin Ress asking for my number a few weeks ahead of that, but yeah, he reached out to me. He waited until my eligibility was up and then reached out to me the first chance he got. So yeah, that was pretty much from then on. They were the best American team last year. So, I think the other American teams, I reached out to some of them or all the American teams, and they were all super nice. But I think Cali just kind of had everything that I wanted in a professional team.
Some people chose their team because it fit their exam schedule, their class schedule. I think LA Current only had meets on weekends. It fit their class schedule. We heard from some athletes. So, but you just went because you just thought there was a top U.S. team, and that's why you chose them, or because Jason called you first and said, "Yo, we're gonna win this year. Come on."
I think it was a little bit of both. Also, just because it's Jason Lezak.
I know he had the NCAA. He had the trophy. Did you take the medal? Oh, by the way, this medal happened to be here.
Yeah, that the greatest relay swim of all time. Yeah, that was me. Yeah. Big deal.
So you're a great short course swimmer. Obviously, ISL, at least up to now, has been all short course meters. How long do you see yourself being successful in this format? Do you see yourself making a living off ISL alone?
I hope so. I'm definitely planning on swimming through 2024 at least. I think my body, talking to Braden and a few of our other coaches, I think my body is going to be physically at its peak in 2 or 3 years. So just trying to really keep swimming through that if I'm able to, barring any huge physical horror. So hopefully I can just keep swimming through definitely 2024 and then see where it goes after that.
Are you prone to injury? You're not prone to injury.
Just a little injury, and had a hernia my sophomore year, but other than that, nothing too major.
Oh man.
All right, Coleman, we got some rapid fire questions to end with for you.
All right.
What's the hardest race in swimming?
50 back skins.
You're the first one who said that. Well done. We asked Nathan Adrian. We asked Marco Cook. We asked everybody. Well done. Sorry, I'm excited.
Olympic gold or world record?
World record.
Are nose clips cheating?
No.
What is the home city of the Cali Condors?
San Francisco.
Yeah, you're our home team. We look forward to your
we're home fans right here.
You coming back home. We've been waiting for a home match, the whole 2 seasons.
We have a parade waiting for you.
Maybe someday.
Well, maybe you already answered this. Would you rather race backstroke skins or butterfly skins?
Butterfly.
Who's the fastest underwater kicker of all time?
David Burkhoff.
Ooh,
maybe not the fastest, but probably the best.
You don't know, right?
He was an innovator. That was crazy back then.
Yeah. There's a lot of respect in that one. Where do you fall on the all-time list?
Top
10?
Top 10, I would say.
Okay. What is it going to take to make the Olympic team in the 100 fly?
Time-wise?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I know second place, but
yeah, Dressel's going to go sub 50, so sometime slower than that. I would say. 50 maybe.
Dressel plus. Should we set the new times as Dressel plus? Dressel plus 0.2. Is that it? I don't know, man. He's had off years. He had an off year a few years ago. Are you worried about killing so many brain cells, spending so much time underwater?
I don't have much to lose, so a little bit, yeah.
I don't know about that. All right, man. That's all we got for you, dude. Thanks so much for hanging out. It was fun to get to know you.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Right on. All right. Well, that's it for this episode of the Social Kick Podcast. And yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Later.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it. And be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at The Social Kick Podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick. And you can find all of our content on our website at thesocialkick.com.